I thought I knew what love was supposed to feel like. 5 years together, 3 of them engaged, and countless late-night talks about our future. It felt steady, certain, unshakable. James wasn't just my fiancé, he was my best friend. We had routines that felt like home. Friday night takeout on the couch, morning coffee runs where he always remembered to add an extra shot to mine, and those quiet drives where we didn't need to talk because just being together was enough. We'd been saving for a wedding. Not a grand one, but something intimate. Our closest friends, family, and a ceremony under the oak tree at his grandmother's old estate. I used to look at that tree and imagine myself walking toward him, veil flowing, heart racing, knowing he would be waiting with the same smile he gave me the first time we met. But one ordinary Wednesday evening, that image cracked. We'd just finished dinner, simple pasta, the kind we'd made 100 times before. He was unusually quiet, staring at his fork, tapping the table like he was trying to gather courage. I asked him if something was wrong, half expecting he'd talk about stress from work. Instead, he put his fork down, rubbed his hands together, and whispered words I'll never forget. "I'm not sure I'm ready to marry you." It didn't feel real at first. I laughed, an awkward, nervous laugh, because it sounded like a bad joke. But his eyes stayed fixed on mine, heavy, serious, almost apologetic. The silence between us grew sharp, and my chest tightened as if all the air had been sucked out of the room. "James, what are you saying?" My voice barely came out. He sighed, looking away, like he couldn't bear the weight of my reaction. "I love you, but I don't know if it's enough." The word enough sliced through me. My world, which had felt so secure a moment before, suddenly tilted. 5 years of love, trust, and plans, all hanging in the balance of his uncertainty. And deep down, something told me this wasn't the whole truth. I sat frozen, my mind racing back through every memory, every kiss, every promise we'd made. How could he say this after everything? 5 years of I love yous, of calling me his future wife, of picking out venues and arguing about what kind of cake to serve. It couldn't just dissolve with a single confession. Not enough. I repeated, my voice cracking. "What does that even mean, James? You've been the one pushing for this wedding. You wanted to set the date, to start a family." He rubbed his temples, looking exhausted, like he had been carrying this weight far longer than I realized. "I thought it was what I wanted," he muttered. "But lately, I keep wondering if I rushed into things. If I really know who I am outside of us." Outside of us. The phrase echoed in my chest like a gunshot. I wanted to scream at him, to ask how he could wait until now to say this. But instead, I just stared at the man I thought I knew better than anyone, suddenly feeling like he was a stranger. Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "So what?" I asked, my voice trembling. "You're just realizing this now? After 5 years? After everything we've built?" He flinched at the anger in my tone, but he didn't take it back. Instead, he reached across the table as if to hold my hand, then stopped halfway, pulling back. "I didn't want to hurt you," he whispered. I pushed my chair back and stood, my legs unsteady. Well, too late for that. The room spun as I walked away from the table. In the hallway mirror, I caught a glimpse of myself, mascara smudged, eyes wide with disbelief. For the first time in years, I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me. But as broken as I felt, there was one thought I couldn't shake. James wasn't just unsure. His hesitation carried a shadow, something unspoken lingering behind his words. And I knew I wouldn't rest until I uncovered what he wasn't telling me. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I replayed his words. I don't know if it's enough. It felt like the ground beneath me had cracked open, leaving me dangling above an endless drop. For 5 years, James had been my anchor. Now, he was the one pulling me under. I lay awake, listening to him shift restlessly beside me. At one point, I thought he was asleep, but then I heard him sigh, long, heavy, guilty. My chest tightened. Did he regret saying it? Or was he relieved? In the morning, he tried to act normal. He kissed my forehead before leaving for work, like he always did, but it felt different, lighter, almost rehearsed. I forced a smile, but as soon as the door closed, I collapsed on the couch, clutching a pillow to my chest, trying to steady my breathing. I thought about calling my best friend Rachel, but what would I even say? "Hey, remember how I told you James and I were planning the wedding of our dreams? Turns out he's not sure if he even wants to marry me." Just imagining the pity in her voice made my stomach twist. By afternoon, the silence in the apartment was unbearable. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through James's social media. Nothing unusual. Work photos, a couple of old shots of us smiling at parties, his usual dry humor captions. But something caught my eye. A string of late-night likes on someone's profile. A woman I didn't recognize. Pretty stylish, with posts about traveling, self-growth, living authentically. My hands trembled as I clicked through her page. She wasn't just a random stranger. She worked at his company. Her name was Claire. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. He hadn't said her name. He hadn't admitted anything beyond his doubts. But suddenly, his words from last night made a cruel kind of sense. Was James's uncertainty really about us, or about someone else? I told myself I was being paranoid. A couple of likes on Instagram didn't mean he was cheating. But the way his eyes had darted away from mine when he said, "I don't know if it's enough," the heaviness in his voice, it all gnawed at me. That evening, when James came home, I studied him as he kicked off his shoes and loosened his tie. He seemed distracted, absent. Usually he'd ask about my day, tease me about burning dinner again, pull me into a hug. But now he just muttered a tired "hey," and scrolled through his phone. I forced myself to ask, "Is there something you're not telling me?" He froze for a fraction of a second, then put his phone down carefully. Like what? His tone was calm, too calm, like someone rehearsing their lines. Like, why now? Why say you're unsure after 5 years? You don't just wake up one day and realize that. He rubbed his jaw, sighing. I told you, I've been questioning things. About my life, about us. It's not about anyone else, if that's what you're thinking. The way he said it, too quickly, too defensively, made my stomach flip. He got up and walked into the kitchen, ending the conversation. I wanted to scream after him, but instead I sat in silence, my mind racing. If it wasn't about anyone else, then why did he sound so guilty? Later that night, while he showered, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message preview lit up the screen. Can't wait to talk more tomorrow. No name, just those words. My hand shook as I stared at it. Tomorrow. Talk about what? The sound of water running in the bathroom gave me a window. My heart hammered as I picked up his phone, debating whether to open it. I hated the idea of snooping. But after 5 years together, after everything we'd built, didn't I deserve to know the truth? I tapped the screen. The screen unlocked with Face ID, almost too easily, like the universe itself wanted me to see. My hands trembled as I swiped up and opened his messages. There it was, Claire. The same woman whose profile I had stalked earlier. My chest tightened as I scrolled. The first few texts seemed harmless enough. Work talk, a few jokes about office coffee, complaints about their boss. But then the tone shifted. Claire, you always make me laugh. You're the only reason I can get through these endless meetings. James, same. You get me in a way no one else does. That line hit me like a punch to the gut. In a way no one else does. Was I just no one else to him now? The texts went on. Late-night messages, often starting with something innocent and slipping into something deeper. Talks about dreams, feeling trapped, wanting to live authentically. The same words she posted on her Instagram. And then one that froze my blood. Claire, I know it's complicated with her, but I don't want to be just the other woman. I need to know if this is real. James, it is. I just need more time. My vision blurred. The phone slipped slightly in my hand, and I had to steady myself against the nightstand. He wasn't just doubting us. He wasn't just unsure. He was already building something with someone else, while still lying in my bed, still planning a wedding he never intended to follow through on. The water stopped. Panic surged through me. I quickly set the phone down, heart racing so fast I thought it might explode. I threw myself under the covers, clutching the blanket, forcing my eyes shut as the bathroom door opened. He stepped out, hair damp, towel slung around his shoulders. I pretended to be half asleep, but my body betrayed me. My breaths came too shallow, too quick. He paused by the bed, studying me, and for a terrifying second, I thought he knew. But then he slid in beside me, his arm brushing mine, his phone lighting up again on the nightstand. This time, I didn't dare look. The next morning, I went through the motions, coffee, small talk, a forced smile, as if my world hadn't just collapsed the night before. He kissed my cheek like nothing was wrong, like he wasn't secretly promising another woman more time. But inside, something had shifted. The hurt was still raw, but beneath it, a spark of resolve flickered. If James thought he could string us both along, he was wrong. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to collapse at his feet, asking why I wasn't enough. I had given him 5 years, my loyalty, my love. If he was too blind to see the worth of that, then I had a decision to make. But before I could act, I needed the truth out loud from his own mouth. Not whispered in texts to Claire. Not hidden in vague confessions about being unsure. The next time he sat across from me, I would force him to choose. And something told me he wouldn't like what I had to say when he did. I waited until Saturday. I don't know why. I guess I needed time to gather myself to make sure I wouldn't explode in a storm of tears and accusations. I wanted him cornered, not coddled. I wanted answers. We were supposed to spend the afternoon running errands, buying groceries, looking at fabric swatches for the wedding decor. I wasn't even sure what happened. He came into the kitchen, car keys in hand, his usual calm smile plastered on his face. "Ready to go?" he asked, like we were still the perfect couple. I set down my coffee mug and looked at him. "James, we need to talk first." He froze, keys dangling loosely from his hand. "About what?" His tone was light, but I caught the flicker of nerves in his eyes. I took a deep breath. "About Claire." The silence that followed was suffocating. His jaw tightened. He didn't even bother to ask who I meant. He just looked away, exhaling hard through his nose, as if he'd been waiting for this moment. "I saw the messages," I said quietly. "All of them." His shoulders sagged. He didn't deny it. Didn't fight. That hurt more than anything. If he had argued, shouted, begged me to believe him, maybe some part of me would have clung to the illusion that I mattered. But instead he whispered, "I'm sorry." Sorry. That one word cracked something inside me. "How long?" My voice shook despite my effort to keep it steady. "How long have you been sneaking around behind my back?" He shook his head quickly. "It's not like that. Nothing physical happened. We just talked. We connected." Connected, I repeated, the word bitter on my tongue. "While you were planning a life with me. While I was saving every extra dollar for our wedding. While you were holding me at night and telling me I was your forever." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. "I didn't mean for it to happen. Claire she listens in a way I feel like you don't anymore. She makes me think about who I am, what I want out of life. I felt like I was suffocating, like we were already locked into this path, and instead of talking to me, you ran to her." My words cut him off like glass. His mouth opened, then closed again. He looked at me with something like regret, but also with a strange relief, as if admitting it freed him. I swallowed the lump in my throat. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to look him straight in the eye. "So tell me, James, is it me you want, or is it her?" He hesitated, and in that hesitation, I already had my answer. The man who once promised me forever couldn't even say my name. The silence between us stretched so long that I could hear the hum of the refrigerator. His eyes darted everywhere, the floor, the window, the ceiling, but never landed on me. That alone was enough. Finally, he said, "I don't know." My chest tightened. "You don't know? After 5 years together, after building a life, after planning a wedding, you don't know if you want me?" He dragged his hands down his face, groaning. "It's not that simple, Emily. You and I, we've built so much together. You're safe. You're steady. But with Claire, I feel alive. Like I'm discovering who I really am." Safe. Steady. The word stung worse than any insult. I wasn't his love anymore. I was his security blanket. I felt my voice harden, even as my heart cracked. "Do you hear yourself? You're describing me like I'm a mortgage payment. I'm not here to be your stability while you go chasing excitement with someone else." He looked at me then, really looked, but his expression wasn't the one of the man I'd fallen in love with. It was guilt, pity, and something worse, distance. I stood, my chair scraping across the floor. "You don't get to have both of us, James. You don't get to string me along while you decide if she makes your heart race more than I do. So I'll make this simple for you." His eyes widened slightly. "Emily." "No," I cut him off. "You've had your time to think. Now it's my turn. You don't know if you want me? Then I'll save you the trouble of deciding. I'm done." The words left my mouth with a clarity that startled even me. For weeks, I'd been drowning in confusion and heartbreak, but in that moment, I felt something shift. Not relief, not yet, but strength. He reached out, desperate, but I stepped back. "Don't," I said sharply. "Don't touch me. Don't tell me you're sorry again. You made your choice the second you let her become an option." He looked stricken, like he wanted to argue, but the truth sat heavy between us. There was no fixing this, not anymore. I grabbed my keys from the counter and headed for the door. My hands were shaking, but my back was straight. As I stepped outside, I realized I didn't just leave our apartment. I left behind 5 years of waiting for someone who couldn't even say my name when it mattered most. And though my heart was shattered, a small, defiant voice inside whispered, "This is the beginning of something new." The first night away from him was the hardest. I drove aimlessly until the city lights blurred through my tears, finally pulling into Rachel's driveway past midnight. She opened the door in her pajamas, saw my face, and didn't ask questions, just wrapped me in a hug that finally let the sobs break free. I stayed in her guest room, staring at the ceiling until dawn, my body numb and heavy. Every corner of that room reminded me of what I'd lost, no, what I'd given up before he could take even more from me. The next days blurred together. Rachel brewed endless cups of tea and sat with me as I spilled everything. The messages, the confession, his hesitation. Her outrage was fierce, protective. "He doesn't deserve 5 minutes of you, let alone 5 years, she snapped, slamming her mug on the table. I wanted to believe her. But love doesn't evaporate overnight, no matter how much betrayal taints it. I kept reaching for my phone, half expecting a text from him. And sure enough, they came. "James, can we talk? Please. I made a mistake. James, you're the best thing in my life. Don't throw it away like this. James," I ended things with Claire. "It's you. It's always been you." Each message twisted the knife deeper. He'd chosen his words carefully, but I knew better. He hadn't ended it because of me. He'd ended it because he got caught. One evening, Rachel caught me staring at my phone, tears in my eyes. She grabbed it from my hands and set it face down. "You don't owe him a response," she said firmly. "Closure doesn't come from him. It comes from you." Her words lodged deep inside me. For the first time, I let myself imagine a future without James. Not just surviving, but living. I threw myself into work, into long walks, into journaling late at night. Slowly, the ache dulled, replaced by something steadier, resolve. I realized I'd been shrinking myself for years to fit into the version of me he wanted, dependable, safe, predictable. But I wasn't just steady. I was strong. A week later, I returned to the apartment with a box in hand, Rachel by my side. James was there sitting on the couch, his face pale, when he saw me. "Emily," he started, standing quickly. "Thank God. We can fix this." I held up a hand, cutting him off. "I'm not here to fix anything. I'm here for my things." The look in his eyes, shock, desperation, should have broken me. But instead, it made me certain I was doing the right thing. I wasn't just walking away from him. I was walking back toward myself. James followed me around the apartment like a shadow, his voice pleading, cracking in ways I'd never heard before. "Emily, please, just hear me out." I panicked, I got confused. "Claire was a mistake. She never meant anything compared to you." I opened the closet, pulling out my dresses, shoving them into the box without folding. "You don't get to rewrite the story, James. You don't get to decide when I'm enough and when I'm not." He reached for my arm, but I stepped back, glaring at him until he dropped his hand. For once, he looked small, like the man who'd always seemed so sure of himself had finally run out of excuses. "I'll change," he whispered. "I'll prove it to you." I laughed bitterly. "You already proved who you are. I just didn't want to see it." Rachel appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, her presence solid as a wall. James's eyes darted to her, then back to me, realizing he had no chance of convincing me alone. By the time I sealed the box, the apartment didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a stage where I had performed someone else's script for too long. I carried the box out without looking back. In Rachel's car, I let out a shaky breath. For the first time in weeks, I felt lighter. Not happy, not yet, but free. The following days surprised me. Instead of collapsing under the weight of loss, I found myself standing taller. I signed up for a yoga class, something James used to mock as a waste of time. I reached out to old friends he never liked, and they welcomed me back without hesitation. Then an unexpected email arrived. A fellowship I had applied for months ago, something I'd almost forgotten about, accepted me. A year-long program abroad teaching and working on projects I'd once called someday dreams. The offer was life-changing. The old me, the one who had built her world around James, would have hesitated, asked his opinion, worried about how it fit into our future. But now there was no our. There was just me. That night, I stood in Rachel's kitchen, staring at the email. She watched me carefully. "You're going to say yes, right?" I smiled through tears, nodding slowly. "Yeah, I think I am." And for the first time since James's confession shattered my world, I felt something new stirring inside me. Not just survival. Not just healing. Hope. 2 weeks later, I stood at the airport with my suitcase by my side. The fellowship had fast-tracked everything: visa, housing, a ticket to a country I'd only dreamed of visiting. My heart was racing, but wasn't fear anymore. It was anticipation. Rachel hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "You're finally choosing you, Em," she whispered. "I'm so damn proud of you." I smiled, blinking back tears. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I know who I am. As I walked towards security, my phone buzzed in my pocket. James. Another message. Probably another apology, another promise, another attempt to tug me back into his orbit. For a moment, I considered opening it. Then I pressed and held until the option appeared: block this caller. With one tap, I severed the last thread binding me to him. The plane ride was long, but I didn't sleep. Instead, I stared out the window as the clouds shifted below, thinking about the woman who had cried herself to sleep on Rachel's couch just weeks earlier. That woman was gone. When I landed, a cool breeze met me as I stepped out into the unfamiliar city. Everything felt new: sounds, smells, faces. And instead of feeling lost, I felt alive. I spent that first night walking the narrow streets, notebook in hand, jotting down every detail like I was rediscovering life itself. Nobody here knew me as James's fiancé, or the woman left behind, or the safe option. Here I was just Emily. 5 years of love had ended in a single confession, but those years weren't wasted. They taught me who I was, and more importantly, who I refused to be for anyone else again. Standing under the foreign night sky, I whispered to myself, "This isn't an ending. It's the beginning." And for the first time in forever, I truly believed it.